G'day guys, this is X-Ray Racer 1 here, and today I'm going to be doing another model railroading how-to video. In this video I will be showing you how to paint an undecorated box, some undecorated rolling stock. Now what I'll be painting is a Micro Trains 40-foot stock car. That's it here. It comes undecorated and in pieces. There is some assembly required, not a lot. However, what I'm going to show you will be relative to whether you model N scale, which is what I model, or HO scale, O scale, G scale, Z scale, or Z scale if you're American. It's all relative, and the principle is all the same. So what we will be aiming for is, and as they say on those TV ads, here's one I prepared earlier, we will be doing this. So this, I painted it in my Fakeville Railroad colours. It's a simple colour where it's mostly white with some green on the bottom. Later on I will weather it, and I will do that in the video, and I will weather this one as well. So this is what we're aiming for. So things you will need, which I will have the obvious, and I'll have some things that I recommend. Now obviously the first thing you will need is obviously your rolling stock. Now this also applies to if you're painting a locomotive, even a house, like a kit building or something like that. Same principle applies. So obviously you'll need your rolling stock, so we need that. You will need paint, which is an obvious. So in this case I will be using Model Master brand paint. The colors I am using, also for weathering, I'll be using Tamiya XF52, which is flat earth. Colors I'll be using to paint the initial box car: a Model Master semi-gloss white. Unfortunately the markings are very smudged and rubbed away, so I can't give you a part number. Also I'll be using a dark green, which is also flat, and flat black. Now also I will recommend, now for me I have found with Micro Trains rolling stock, the particular plastic that they use, for some reason Model Master doesn't really stick to it that well. So one thing I will recommend is some Tamiya surface primer. Now, so that's it there. We'll let it focus. Yep. Now the part number for this is, if I can find it. Oh, great. Well, what I'll do, guys, is write down here will be the part number. But yeah, Tamiya surface primer. Other things you will need: some masking tape, some tweezers, possibly, if need be, some small needle nose pliers, some scissors to help with cutting masking tape, and some paintbrush and some paintbrushes. Now this is just one I'm showing here just for reference. Some paintbrushes with fine detail parts. Also some cotton tips. If you get a bit of a run, you can use that to take away some of the excess paint. Now, other things I recommend that you have are some, I guess you can call them hobby jigs with little clamps. This will help with painting. So what I've got here is it's got like a little alligator clip, and I got a bit of foam here, and that way the box part just sits on it and then you can paint away. Now I also, if you want really nice clear detail, I recommend an airbrush. Also, if you have to, depending on what brand and what kind of rolling stock you have, I recommend you have some plastic glue. This is Revell plastic glue. There it is right there. This is for like if you need to glue on some parts. So these are the things that we need to be done. So first of all, what comes next is primer. So what we'll do is, because it's in a pressure packed can, we'll go outside and do the primer. Alright guys, so now we have applied the primer to the rolling stock. I like to let the primer to fully dry over a couple of hours, just so it's dried, and it'll help the paint itself to stick better. So for those that are using an airbrush, if you're painting it on something like this, it helps if you have a compressor with variable pressure. And by that I mean some airbrush systems, instead of using an air compressor, you can use a can of compressed air, but with the air compressor you can adjust the pressure of the air coming out, and I like to have mine at about 20 psi. But also if you want to use a can, like say for instance like a normal pressure pack can, they come out at about 40 psi, so you'll want to keep the actual spray at a certain more than 15 centimeters away. Otherwise you'll get a bubbling effect. So anyway, we'll start with our first coat. I'll just do a quick test. You can't see it, but I'll just do a quick test. Alright, now we start painting. When you're painting as well, if you got things like, if I zoom in here, if it'll focus. Okay, so it's not going to focus too well. But if we look here, you can see we have ladders on the side here. So when you're painting, especially with an airbrush, don't just have the airbrush pointed straight. Try and paint downwards and upwards as well, so you get coverage on all the sections. So if we go up under here, that way we're painting up along under the ridges as well. So the same thing again, see we've got a ledge here. So what I'll do is I'll just do the quick coat. Okay, so now we'll point it downwards. And now we do upwards. And so that gives us a good coverage. Alright, so that's the first coat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it here. I'm going to do a couple more coats. I'm going to let it dry, but obviously dry in between coats. So I'm going to pause it here, then we'll come back once I'm done, and then we'll go from there. Alright guys, so we've got our, I guess you could say, our primary colour on. So now, next part is masking. Now this is going to can be a little difficult. I'm just doing a simple 2-color scheme, and it's nothing fancy or anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to mask just around the bottom part here. So if we have a look in here, that's what we're going for, is just that green around the bottom. So, and as you can see, this particular piece of rolling stock has opening doors, so we're going to have to mask the doors as well. But first what we'll do is we'll just move that over to the side here, and I'll see if I can just zoom out. Alright, so what we need is our masking tape. Now for reference, I'm using Tamiya masking tape. I find that this works well, especially with fine detail. Now I'll bring it out and mention it. Now one thing you're going to have to pay attention to is the detail in the parts, because the masking tape will not sit very well on the ridges, I guess you could say, or on the detail. So there'll be little gaps underneath. So when we get towards painting, I will show it to you and the technique to prevent bleeding. So what I'll do is I will point the camera down a smidge. Okay, just bear with me folks. And this is most likely going to be sped up, but I will explain what I've done after. Alright guys, so what we've done here is we've masked it up. When you're doing your masking, go around the edges, make sure it's nicely pressed down and got good adhesion. Now what I'll do is I will do the doors that I showed you off camera. So as I mentioned here, if we look underneath, you possibly can't see anything, but underneath you could probably see small gaps. So when it comes to painting, we're going to have to be very careful so as not to have any bleeding go underneath. So when it comes time to paint, in the next bit I will show you how to prevent any bleeding. Alright guys, so we're ready to paint the next part. Now as I mentioned in that last bit, there's a technique I will show you for painting that will help prevent bleeding if you've got highly detailed small parts. Now if we look closely here, you can see how, if I zoom it in a bit more, how there are gaps underneath. So how it's going to work is as I mentioned earlier on in painting, instead of just holding the airbrush, in this case flat, point it downwards. That way it's not going up or straight and doesn't have that blast up effect. So by painting it downwards, the paint's shooting down, and essentially it's not going to touch up inside where you have it masked. So we have our paint done, or filled. So I'm just going to give it a quick test. It's probably a bit too much pressure, so I'll just back it off a little bit, just a bit under. Alright, now let's paint it. Like I said, pointing downwards. So just trying to get it in focus for you. There we go. Needed a hand, literally. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it here. I will paint the doors that I have also got masked up as well. And then we'll come back. Alright guys, so coming towards the, I guess you could say, final stages. As you can see, the paintwork came out pretty damn good. You might want to later on do a little touching up if it needs it, using a small paintbrush to get areas where the airbrush may have missed. But it came out pretty good. As you can see, the doors came out pretty damn good. So next part what we're going to be doing now is probably just doing a bit of the assembly part, depending on what kind of rolling stock you have. Now what I'm going to do here is get some of the small parts, and it will require a little finesse. So what I have here is what would be the, if I can get it to focus, this would be the handbrake wheel, which will go onto the main shell. So what I'm going to do here is I'll do the minor assembly. Then we're going to get on to weathering. So, first of all, we'll need a little bit of glue. Sorry if it's out of shot, but I'll try to keep it in shot. Not a lot of glue's needed, it's only a small part. Alright, so there's the, I guess you call it the park brake wheel. And what we'll do, since we're here, is we'll paint it. And I'll do it the exact same way as I did it, same color as the other one that I showed you earlier on in the video. Just a little flat black. And this is a very very, as you can see, if I can get it to focus, very thin, small paintbrush. So there we go, guys. Doesn't have to be anything spectacular. So what we'll do now is we'll assemble, do the minor assembly. Alright, so that's the doors on. So now we'll head into the weathering part, which is pretty much same thing as painting, just a little bit more, I guess just a more complex. Alright, so we'll come up to weathering. Alright guys, so next part of this is weathering. As you can see here, I have a before and after example. So this one here is what we'll be aiming for. Now don't worry if paint, as you can see, the paint's a little bit funny like that. After a while, going around on the track, it will wear off. But this is what we're aiming for. So the color I've chosen for this part of weathering, and I will just zoom out. It is Tamiya XF52 Flat Earth, if I can get it to focus. There we go. Trust me, it does say Flat Earth. I don't know what it is with this camera. I've always had an issue with it trying to focus. I'm not sure if it's light or what. Anyway, so we're aiming for this. And I will just adjust my little thingamajig here. Alright, so I will try to get it in as close as possible, and I will adjust the camera accordingly. Alright, now same thing as before. I like to have a light amount of paint coming out. I'll just give it a quick test here. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll start bear with me a sec, guys. Sorry if it's out of focus. I will get it to refocus again. There we go. So that's part of it so far. Now we'll do the underside. Again, get it to focus. And it's as simple as that, really. Now I'll just put my airbrush over here. So, guys, that's pretty easy. If I can just get the thing to focus. So, like I said, it's pretty straightforward. You only have to use a light amount of paint. Now, like I said before, with the wheels, if I can get it focused again, where you see it on the actual in part of the wheels, don't worry, as it runs along the rails, that paint will wear off. So it will have I guess you could say more realistic look. And you can do this with metal wheels, I guess, too, but the paint will adhere better to plastic. So give me a quick second, guys, and I will come back with the boxcar part, or the shell. Alright, so we have the shell here. Now, bear with me, guys, because it's obviously having an issue with focusing, so I'll do my best to keep much of it on camera. Now, the whole idea is it's to give it a dirty look, like it's, where it's been, say, at a cattle ranch or at a cattle station or depot somewhere, and it's all dirt and all the the livestock's kicking up dirt and everything. So that's the whole idea of what I'm trying to aim for here. So we'll go slowly and very carefully. And when you're weathering too, it doesn't have to be an even layer, because there could be stuff built up where it could be going along in one direction, so you might have a bit more dirt, so to speak, built up front in the direction it's traveling. So just little things like that. So if we look at this side here, like that, and then we look on the other side where it hasn't been touched, you can see the difference that it makes. Just a little bit of weathering just changes it a little. Okay, do a little bit more on the roof. And do a bit on the what would be the walkway here, like footprints. Alright, so like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect because it is called weathering. So that's the end of the painting. So now let's put it together. Alright guys, this is the final stage in painting and so forth. So now we'll finish up the assembly, which is pretty easy. And there we have it, guys. Yep. We have our painted and weathered rolling stock. And just to give you an idea of what it looks like, because I haven't done the other one yet, I'll get my other one out. And here's the unweathered one side by side. So as you can see, weathering makes a difference. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. And cheers.